Good morning, everybody. Welcome into the Tipping Point with Mike Tipton. We are live on Facebook, on X, on YouTube, not live on the National Streaming Sports app. But you know what? It's all good. I'm happy. It's a good time for me today. We will be live once again on National Streaming Sports next week on Monday. No show on New Year's Day, though. I don't think I'm going to be willing to do a show on New Year's Day if I'm going to be staying up super early, doing my thing, and more than likely partaking in an ungodly amount of adult beverages. Remember, the Tipping Point with Mike Tipton is brought to you by our friends over at RevAutoCarCare.com. RevAutoCarCare.com. Use promo code Tipton33. That is Tipton33, Tipton 33, to save up to 15% or more on all of your car care needs. Now, I want to go ahead and get into a little bit of stuff that happened a little bit yesterday. Sorry, I said that super randomly. Having to check some things here, checking the stream, make sure everything is going good and everything is well. And it looks to be that everything is looking good right now. So that is a good time for your boy. I don't have anything that I need to stress about. Making sure we have audio and everything is good. That I need to stress about. Whoa, that was a little too loud. But yeah, we got audio. We are good to go. We are flying on this spaceship on a Friday morning. It is super early. I'm expecting nobody, absolutely nobody, to be tuned into today's show. But consistency is key, and I am all about consistency. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what happened yesterday with the Chicago Bears and the Seattle Seahawks. And I'm watching this game yesterday, and I am struggling to get through this damn thing. I mean, I am just hating myself because I am watching what has to be a nightmare hellscape of football. Nobody in their right damn mind watched that game and thought to themselves, this is fun. And I say that again and again and again and again because we consistently hear this nonsense from people talking about how there's too much scoring. I always feel like the people that talk about the fact that there's too much scoring in sports are the people that can't score in real life. Like they're at home just wailing on themselves, consistently just going to town on themselves because that's all they've got. You can't talk to the member of the opposite sex, so you have to be able to just beat yourself off like that. I hate to sound that way, but that's the way it is. So we want to talk about defense and just defense. And it gets so damn annoying having to deal with all these people that want to watch defense and just nothing but defense. And oh my God, this was a great defensive struggle. Nobody wants to watch a game that finishes 6-3. I get it. There was rain. I get that there was, some other issues and things like that going on with the game. Adrian Zamudio saying good morning. Good morning to you, Adrian. Glad that you're tuned in this early in the morning. Hope that you're having a fantastic Friday thus far, and hopefully an even better Friday as it moves on. We're talking about that game yesterday between the Seattle Seahawks and the Chicago Bears. It was an absolute nightmare to watch. I at one point, I'm thinking to myself, right? Like I've watched football on Saturday. I watched it on Sunday. I watched it on Monday. I watched bowl games on Tuesday. I was watching football and basketball on Wednesday, and then yesterday on Thursday night football on Amazon Prime. I'm watching the Bears and the Seahawks struggle to score more than your friends at a bar whenever it's 2:00 in the morning. Like, it was just an absolute terrible game to watch. And I watched almost every damn second of it. I even made hot chocolate to help keep me awake. Just overly caffeinated because of how terrible this game was. And it wasn't like the Sunday, the witching hour games between the 1:00 slate and then the 4:00 slate. It was more along the lines of this game just has nothing worth watching. This game just isn't fun. I love weather games. I love watching snow games and rainy games and all these kinds of things, lightning in the background type games. I love weather games, and I'm sitting here watching this abomination between the Seahawks and the Bears. And I'm thinking to myself, I hate myself right now. I have never in my life have I ever thought to myself, I hate myself for what I'm watching. And the only reason why I felt that way is because I could not for the life of me find any enjoyment in that. I'm watching the fans and they look like they were having a nightmare being at that game. I'm watching, the players on the sidelines and they look like they don't want to be at this damn game. Seattle has to win in order to keep their playoff hopes alive. We have to see what the Rams are going to do. If the Rams beat the Cardinals, the Rams more than likely win the NFC West. The Bears' struggles continue. The Bears are just an absolute dumpster fire of a team. And we're sitting back watching that this is a game that was presented to us on Amazon Prime. This was a standalone game. Nothing else going against it was as far as the NFL goes, right? It's like Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, and Thursday nights are the nights that we expect to have great games. And normally I'm always the type of person that would say bad versus bad equals a fun game. And it just did not happen that way with yesterday's game. And I even remember thinking to myself as I'm going into the game, as I'm getting ready to watch this game, as I'm thinking about Thursday Night Football and all the fun and the happiness that it's going to bring me, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, this is a nightmare. Nobody should, there was nothing worth watching in that game. And I think to myself, where was the NFL in flexing some of this stuff? You could have given us that game, that Thursday night game, on like a random Sunday at 11 o'clock in the morning in Mountain Time, and absolutely none of us would have cared about it. But it was the only thing on yesterday after we've been mainlining sports just left and right over the last week and a half, getting ready for our holidays and all the other things that are going on. The second day of Hanukkah spent watching the Chicago Bears and the Seattle Seahawks just insult football. This is what I imagine football looked like in the 1920s. Just no one having any idea how to actually play the game. Like they were writing the rules as the game was being played. And I sit back and I think to myself, why didn't the NFL flex this game out? There could have been other games that the NFL could have played, right? Like there could have been something else, just literally anything else that the NFL could have played on that day to try and make people care. And I start looking at the schedule and I see Chargers at Patriots, no. Broncos at Bengals, maybe, right? Maybe we get something working there. The Cardinals at Rams, no. Panthers at Tampa Bay, no. Eagles and Cowboys, maybe, right? Like that might be something to get people ready, but still the Cowboys, as we learned yesterday, going to sit CeeDee Lamb down for the remainder of the year. They're not going to win that game. They've got no chance in hell. So the Cowboys, Eagles, do we flex that into the Thursday night football game because there's nothing really on the line in this game? Yes, Philadelphia wins. They win the division, but is it really up in question anyway? Not really. Is it the Colts and the Giants? Is that the game people want to watch? What about the Raiders and the Saints or the Jets and the Bills, the Titans and the Jaguars? Let's put that game on Thursday night where it stands alone all by itself, where the entire sporting world can watch this game. Instead, as you look at the schedule in Week 17, outside of a handful of games, and I'm talking about maybe four games that we should actually care about. The San Francisco 49ers and the Detroit Lions, the Atlanta Falcons and the Washington Commanders, maybe, the Packers and the Vikings, and then the Broncos and the Bengals. 4 games. 4 games. That's all I could look at on this schedule that would have any meaning. So, of course, you're going to put that on the slate for your Sunday games. That's going to be what you watch on Sunday. And I'm sitting back thinking to myself as again, I'm watching this game being played out. 6-3. 6-3 in a rainy day. And I'm thinking to myself, I hate what I have become as a sports fan. There's a lot of days, man. There's a lot of days where I get super lonely and I'm watching, baseball and it's a terrible damn game, or I'm doing this show and it's just me and a microphone and there's no one else out there and it feels like I'm just talking into the abyss 99% of the time. And even in those moments, at least I know on the podcast someone will listen. Someone will share it. Someone will watch part of it. It'll be okay. I get to see the metrics in real time as I see that I've got a couple of people tuned in right now on X, a couple of people tuned in on YouTube, and a couple of people tuned in over on the various Facebook channels. And I sit back and I'm thinking to myself yesterday, I hate what I've become as a sports fan. As someone that loves sports, I hate what I've become. Because I'm sitting here subjecting myself to watching the Chicago Bears and the Seattle Seahawks struggle in what just had to be a terrible, terrible, terrible game. The best thing that came out of that game was when the game ended. The best thing that came out of that game was the post-game show where you had Richard Sherman and Ryan Fitzpatrick in an ice bath together, which was not anything I thought I'd ever say. And Ryan Fitzpatrick is proving to the world that he's a tough guy because he can be in cold weather and ice at the same time, right? Richard Sherman was on the struggle bus. Ryan Fitzpatrick made it seem as though, hey, this is the place I ought to be. Obviously, playing in Buffalo is going to do that to somebody. But Jesus Christ, man, we had to wait 3.5 hours of bad football to get to the point where it was entertaining. And it wasn't even because of the game. It was because of the ancillary antics after the game. If I'm Amazon, I am pissed off at the NFL right now. If I'm Amazon, I am so damn angry with the games that I've been getting on Thursday night. Yes, I will genuflect, and I will say that, yes, there have been a couple of games, a handful of games over the last couple of years that Amazon has had the NFL package where it hasn't been an absolute dumpster fire, but it's also not worth watching 90% of the time. You get 17 of these, maybe 18, right? Like you get a handful of games if you're Amazon. You have to maximize what these games are. Sunday Night Football, we hardly ever talk about how bad the matchup is on Sunday Night Football. On Monday Night Football, we hardly talk about how bad the matchup is because it's a fun game most of the time. The production from NBC and ESPN make it so damn fun. But Amazon, even though it's a fun production, even though it's a great product that they're putting out there, I like watching the Madden cast of these things where you get to see the different routes and all the stuff that are ran. And even watching that yesterday was like, these guys don't know what routes they want to run. Even with all that stuff, all the ancillary things, the game is the main product. And Thursday Night Football has always been a more than likely swing and a miss. Yes, they've hit a couple of home runs here and there. But 90% of the time, with Thursday Night Football, we're getting just crap teams. And it's one of those things where you sit back and you think to yourself, why do we continue to play this? Why do we continue to have these games? Like you look at Wednesday, and even the Wednesday games were terrible, right? Like if you look at what they had on Wednesday, the scores that they had on Wednesday, these were not close games. Kansas City absolutely dominating the Pittsburgh Steelers 29-10. The Ravens beating the Texans 31-2. 31-2. The losing teams this week so far have mustered up a grand total of 15 points. 3 games with 15 points, and 2 of those teams had 3 or less, which is just a weird thing to comprehend, that 3 teams or 2 teams in the NFL scored 3 or less points this week. I get the Wednesday struggles of the Texans and the Steelers because that's a Wednesday game. You don't get your full practices in. You have issues. Thursday games, we've had these for a long time. I don't get where we have this mindset now of, it's a short week on Thursday. We have to excuse this game. It's all this other nonsense that's going on. But it's not really. It's not. Like it's been around long enough and it's on the schedule long enough that people should know, that the team should know how to deal with these things. And Thursday Night Football has just been awful for years. I want to say that we've been doing Thursday Night Football for at least 10 to 15 years. It feels like it's been a thing normally. And we're used to seeing this. We should be used to Thursday Night Football games now. Instead, we get a 6-3 just terrible game. I was going to say other words with it. Like it sucked. I've never sat back and thought to myself that a football game sucked if it hasn't been because of, other issues that are out there. If me as a fan, if I get mad at a referee for a blown call, oh, that game sucked. If the Cowboys get their ass kicked, oh, that game sucked. Instead, I'm watching what I'm getting out of the Seahawks and the Bears yesterday, and I got a total of 9 points. A team that lost this week, the Pittsburgh Steelers, scored more in a loss than both those teams did yesterday. And again, I know people are going to say, Tip, there was rain. Tip, there was, it was cold. It was Chicago on a Thursday. I don't care, man. My dude Brandon Butler saying I turned it off at the half and so happy I did. I wish I would have done that, my guy. I'm watching this effing game. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I hate myself. Like I hate that I love sports right now, right? And I mean, I have struggled through some games, dude. I'm a Texas Tech fan. I go to UTEP football games and basketball games and like all kinds of things. I have been to some pretty shitty sporting events. And this game yesterday was the first time in my life that I sat back and thought to myself, I hate loving sports. I hate what I have become as a sports fan. And I can't for the life of me understand how that was the game that Amazon gets. That was the game that we sit back and we say, okay, we'll watch this. And even before the game, let's think about this. Even before the game, what was it about watching the Seahawks and the Bears that got us excited to watch football? What was there? Like what storyline is there between the Seahawks and the Bears where we're like, you know what? I'll watch this one. And the NFL couldn't flex this one out. Like you've seen the Chicago Bears on the struggle bus for the better part of 3 months now? And we couldn't say to ourselves, maybe we should flex this game out, get someone else there, give them enough time to get prepped on a Thursday for their schedule. Just anything. Instead, no. It was god awful. Augustine Pimentel saying that was a game. That was absolutely horrible. I turned the channel in the second quarter. I wish I would have. I really wish I would have. There could have been literally anything else on like on TV, and I would have been happy, just okay with that. Right? Like there was nothing about that game that should have kept me intrigued. And yet here I was watching the damn Chicago Bears and the Seattle Seahawks just killing football. like if the NFL ever tanks, like they just cratered in ratings. They become what the NBA's become, where even though it's a fun product, people just don't watch, right? If the NFL ever goes that route, I'm going to look back at this game and be like, this is the catalyst that did it. This was ground zero, patient number one for the infection that the NFL got that led to becoming what it became. Augustine Pimentel going on to say it was worse than watching a football game at UTEP. I've said it 1,000 times, man. I've been pretty terrible sporting events. Most of the time, you get bad team versus bad team. It creates fun football. This time, it was bad team versus bad team, and it was just a nightmare scenario. Neither team is known for their great defense. Both teams have a lot of offensive weapons. Both teams, in my opinion, underachieving this year. But geez, man, like how can that be the game that the world tunes into? The football loving world, the American football loving world, tunes into on a Thursday night. Augustine going on to say, you and last night's game give football a bad name. But that's the thing, right? Is like you have idiots like me that sit there and watch the whole damn thing, thinking to myself, it might get better, right? Like there was hope. Ever the optimistic, tiptomistic is what I was yesterday. Just super optimistic about maybe we'll get another field goal in this game. Maybe we won't see 16 total punts in this game. Augustine going on to say bad teams with bad coaching. And that is hilarious that you say that, because I was reading an article earlier today, and it was about the coaching staff in Chicago saying, no. There wasn't any clock management issues. We knew exactly what we were doing. And it goes flashback to Thanksgiving against Detroit, almost an exact month ago. Hell, actually exactly a month ago, of not knowing how to work a damn clock and shooting yourself in the leg. I put it out on Twitter. I shared it out on like all my various social media channels. It was the first time in my life that I was thankful that a game didn't go into overtime. And this is on the heels of a bowl game yesterday that went into 6 different overtimes. The game above Sports Bowl featuring Toledo and Pitt. 2 teams no one gives a damn about. Toledo and Pitt. It was the first time in my life that I said to myself, thank God this game didn't go into overtime, because I could not stomach anymore. If it had gone into overtime, it would have been very dark thoughts for your boy, dealing with depression and all kinds of stuff, watching that football game, just questioning to myself, why do you subject yourself to this? Augustine Pimentel saying the USA I was watching in El Paso, that was way better. Let's talk Liverpool, 7 points clear. Liverpool in soccer scored more points than the Bears and the Seahawks, almost combined, which is insane to think about. Augustine saying, ha ha ha, I mean, people play that Madden, or people that play Madden have better clock management. Man, I think if I'm a Chicago Bears fan, right? Like I see the frustration here. I've got a team that has some talent. We came into this season thinking to ourselves that there might be something worth playing for with this season. And I'm watching the Bears and I'm watching their struggles, and I keep thinking to myself, this is a disappointing team. Like there shouldn't have been any expectations for him, but I don't feel like Caleb Williams is the guy, right? Like when you compare him to like a Jaden Daniels or a CJ Stroud last year, or like any of the other quarterbacks that we've seen come out in recent time, hell, even Bo Nix, he's not on that level. And I don't think it's because of whatever ancillary stuff he has going on. I don't think it's the fingernail painting or any of that stuff. I just think he doesn't care. He doesn't care about the damn game. It's a paycheck. He gets to get his paycheck. He gets to go on his way home. You watch the Chicago Bears and you are insulted that they are a football team. Augustine asking, after last night's game, how can the NFL incentivize better games? I guess that's the thing, right? Like earlier, I was looking at wow, that's a good one. Augustine also going on to say that Caleb Williams is today's Todd Marjanovic. I see it, man. I'm with you on that one. But like there's a real possibility here, right? But Augustine going back and asking, after last night's game, how can the NFL incentivize better games? And I was thinking about this, right? I'm looking at the schedule, and there's only 4 games on the schedule this week, week 17, that have any meaning to them. That doesn't mean that the other games are not going to be fun. I think that some of the matchups are going to be fun matchups, but only 4 games that have any implications in them. And that's fine, right? Like, it's week 17. You should already know the haves and the have-nots, who's making the playoffs, who's not making the playoffs. We know these things. But the only way that you can incentivize these matchups is by just, in my mind, is just by getting rid of Thursday Night Football. Obviously, the NFL is not going to do that. They're a money-making vehicle. That's all they care about, is that people are going to watch. They have advertisers. The advertisers are going to make sure that, they pay because you want to pay for the NFL. You get an amazing package. You get football games. And, it's a roll of the dice whether or not you get a good game or a bad game. But, hey, at least you got a football game. And whenever you're the biggest brand in town, that's all that matters, is that you have a football game that you are watching, right? That you have on your airwaves. That's all the NFL cares about. So why not incentivize it? Because I also feel like one of the biggest issues that you have with Thursday Night Football is teams are exhausted, right? Especially this late into the season. Each Thursday Night Football game should come after a bye week. Plain and simple. That's always the way that I think about it. Should come after a bye week. So that way they have additional rest, right? They have more time to rest than what they normally have. Augustine going on to say, if I was the NFL commissioner or the NBA commissioner or any commissioner, I would explore promotion and relegation. It's motivation not to tank. I agree with you on that. The only issue with that is you would have to have the open mind to know that if your team is bad, if you're spending a shit ton of money and your team is bad, that if they get relegated down, that more than likely all the good players on that team are going to be sold off. And you as a fan have to be okay with that. You as a team supporter have to be okay with that. Along with that comes the mindset of there needs to be ancillary leagues out there, right? Like, you can't just have the NFL and the UFL. You would have to have a tertiary and a fourth league that are out there that you can actually, promote from within, take away, do all that stuff. Now, with Major League Baseball, I'm all about it. I think Major League Baseball is it's so much easier, because if you look at the setup, right, of all of the leagues, all of the baseball leagues that are out there, you have MLB, AAA, AA, Single A, right? Would the AAA champion this year fare better in the MLB than the Oakland Athletics? More than likely, right? So in Major League Baseball, you can do that. But in the NFL, you don't have 32 other football teams. Would the NFL be willing to do what Major League Baseball has done for years and create a farm system? I think that would be so much fun. But I don't even think that you would need the year-round league, to be honest, Augustine. I think you would just need a league that plays basically the same time as the NFL. Augustine saying you don't need 32 other teams, you need 12. No, you would need 32 other teams. And the reason why you would need 32 other teams is because you create a minor league system, right? You can't think of it the way that like Premier League and soccer and all that goes. You would need a minor league system, right? That way now you can say, because once again, it comes down to money, right? It's always about money. The owners of these NFL teams get to own their minor league teams as well. So now if your team goes down and gets relegated down, you could bring another squad up and let's see what happens here. obviously the ownership part of it starts dwindling the further down you go. I think you go from being like, the main control guy to being like the second or third control guy to fourth and fifth and so on and so forth, right? That's the only way that I feel like relegation can work within the NFL. In Major League Baseball, I think it's perfect. I've said it flat out on this show a bunch of times. I believe in relegation, and it should be in college football, because in college football you have 136 other teams that you can choose from. In the NFL, and even if you had the UFL, right, there's 40 total teams. So there's not really a lot to choose from. Then who's backing the UFL? Who's backing all of these things? I think relegation would work so much better in college football than it would in the NFL, but that's just because there's so much more teams to choose from. If you're in the NFL, you're enjoying what you are right now, right? I would love to see both the UFL, which those that don't know, the UFL is like the spring football league, their champion get rewarded with having to play whoever in the NFL is the worst team. So at this point, it would be the Las Vegas Raiders. You play the Las Vegas Raiders for the right to remain in the NFL. Like, I think that would be good, right? I think that would create some sort of games worth watching. It would basically be like a professional sports Hunger Games that we would be watching. And I'm down for that. I've never been a huge fan of soccer, but I love the relegation model because it keeps things in check. Augustine's saying there has to be a way for promotion and relegation. I agree with you. But it basically comes down to you have to have another league that you can say is a minor league, right? Whenever you look at the English Premier League, and it just dawned on me that earlier you put EPL and not ELP. I just thought ELP was El Paso, EPL was English Premier League. But I look at the English Premier League, and I look at the European leagues that are out there, and even though there is a difference in competition, there isn't like a huge gap between them. And they have supporters, and they have all of these things that, go decades deep. You would have to deal with the fact that there are going to be growing pains. I think the NBA can have relegation because they have the G League. And if I'm not mistaken, they have at least 26 G League teams. Why they don't have a full 30, I don't know. But they should have, each team should basically have its own minor league system. And then that minor league champion gets to have a championship game, a let's play for it all game to see whether or not they can move up, right? So in this case, it would be whoever is the worst team in the NFL has to play against the champion of the NFL's minor league team to see who gets to stay in the NFL. Who gets to get the main backing from the NFL? Who gets to get those TV deals in the NFL? And that's the ugly thing that people don't want to talk about in American sports, at least, is sports here are ran by TV contracts and TV deals. That's going to be the hardest thing to try to sell, right? It's all about your national TV deal. Now that we're going to more of a national model of TV deals, it might be a little easier. But back in those days of like local TV deals, there was no way in hell that you would get a team like the Dodgers or the Yankees, and if they got relegated down, that their TV deal wouldn't just kill minor league baseball, right? You got to go with the national deal because, and it's something that I've wanted to try to do for a while, and I think I'm going to do it as we get closer to the start of the new year or into the new year. There is a former executive in Major League Baseball. His name is David Sampson, and he talks about sports business. And that's one of the things that I love is the business of sports and the impact of TV deals. And he and I have had some back and forth on X talking about the city of El Paso, because everyone knows I'm a huge proponent of the city of El Paso. I love my hometown. We're the 20th largest city in the country, but we don't have any major league teams. And a lot of the time it's because of the local TV market, right? Las Vegas, even though it's a smaller city than El Paso, has a much larger TV market than El Paso. The same thing with Jacksonville, the same thing with Columbus and like all these other cities. Now that we're going to a more national style where the local TV deal doesn't necessarily matter, now I can see, smaller cities, secondary and tertiary markets start developing where they can create these markets and things like that. I don't think the TV deal for a minor league team needs to be what it is for the NFL, because most people aren't going to watch the beginnings of a minor league team. Hell, we've had minor league baseball for over 140 years, and hardly anyone watches minor league baseball. I talk with former El Paso Diablos owner Jim Paul all the time about this. Who is tuning in to a AAA minor league baseball game on the radio? Like, who is that person? You have to be obsessed with it. Augustine's saying sports business is a great topic, and that's something that I want to get into. It's just I know a lot of people get bored with that topic. So I think it's going to have to be like another podcast that I do, like a standalone that's maybe a once a week thing, because I really want to do that. Like I really do love the business of sports. Augustine's saying it's impressive that people don't understand how big El Paso actually is. And that's the thing, right? Like within the next couple of years, the city of El Paso is going to have a population of over 1 million people. If you look at the teams that have NFL franchises, there are so few of them that have a population over 1 million people. Augustine's saying you've got a natural market of about 3 million locally. And that's the thing, right? Pulling back the curtain for the people that are tuned in, because I do know I have an audience that's not so El Paso centric. When you look at El Paso and the location of it, right? Like the tip of Texas, that very corner of West Texas, that's where El Paso is. You have El Paso, which is a population of about 800, almost 900,000. You have Las Cruces, New Mexico, which is a population of almost 200,000. And then you have Juarez, Mexico, which is a population of about 1.5, I want to say, maybe a little more. But the TV deal doesn't work in this area because the FCC, whatever reason, said that TV waves, even though we can't see them and they're invisible, stop at the border. Where the river is, TV waves stop. Can't say that anyone from Juarez is watching TV in El Paso, which is just not true. Augustine saying the last estimate, to be exact, it was a 75-mile radius for this area, is about 3.4 million people. Juarez currently sitting at 1.9 million. You have a huge sports-loving population that comes here. I went to a game this summer at the Sun Bowl, which is a 50,000-seat stadium, between the Indios from Juarez, like the Juarez Indios, and then it was Club America and the Bravos, right? Club America and the Bravos. And that stadium was sold out. And I mean packed. And the parking lot, packed. And all that stuff, packed. Because you have a sports-loving public in this area. You go to any Saturday night Chihuahuas baseball game for fireworks, and it's packed. No one's watching the game on TV, I'll say that. No one's watching or listening to the game on radio. Although anyone that knows me knows I have a soft spot in my heart for radio. I always will. But I call it like I see it. These are games that I produce, knowing that there's maybe a handful of people listening to the game, more than likely at the stadium. The amount of people that would call into the phone line and say, hey, take off the 7-second delay, was annoying at times. Get a life, my guy. Like really that simple. Get a life. I have to have a 7-second delay on because if someone in the crowd drops an F-bomb and it comes over the airwaves, the FCC is shitting on me, not on you. Augustine saying he's listening. But that's the thing, right? Like, in order for relegation to work, and I love this topic, Augustine, and you've got me going on this because it's a topic that I've really wanted to explore, but I know I can't do on the normal show, right? Because I get to see the numbers right now, and apparently the numbers on Roku are a lot larger than what I thought they were, looking at what I'm seeing right now, at least. And I'm just dumbfounded with how the United States model can't mimic, and I'm not saying copy completely, but the American model can't mimic some of the pros and cons that we have out here for relegation and the EPL and all that stuff that Europe has had and that they've, controlled for hundreds of years now, right? The ability to have relegation in sports for, I want to say, a minimum of 120 years that they've been able to perfect, that they've been able to monetize, that they've been able to create these huge deals with. And a lot of people are going to say, well, you can't do it because the franchises in the United States are so much more valuable. There's two franchises in the United States more valuable than the EPL teams. It's the Yankees and the Cowboys. That's it. Make them have a gauntlet. Again, the sports Hunger Games. I am here for it when it comes to relegation. Hell, I mean, if you want to break it down to have like an NFL 2.0, like Augustine put up in the chat earlier, the NFL minor league team, and you break them up with divisions, AFC, NFC East, South, North, West, all that stuff, and you have the division loser have to play the division winner for the minor league team to see who gets to stay in, dude, I am all about it. I love the chaos that creates. That also creates that you actually got to play your ass off. And what you have to do there now is make sure that contracts are not fully guaranteed, that there's incentive laced in it. That's going to be the hardest thing to do. A lot of these things that you ask about, like why can't, it be this simple? The Players Association. The Players Association in a lot of these leagues have so much power that's why you can see a guy beat up on his wife, get suspended for 4 games, but only serve 2, is because the Players Association is going to go to bat for him. Well, in 1974, you suspended this guy for 2 games because he beat his wife. Why are you making this guy an example? It's a grotesque thing that they do. It's kind of like being a defense lawyer. I've always been told that I'd be a great defense lawyer because I can find the hole in your argument, pop that balloon, and all I have to do is create that one little itty-bitty ounce of reasonable doubt, and I'm okay. I would not be able to sleep at night if I got someone that was a murderer off of his charges. That's why I would never be able to be a defense lawyer. The people out there that can do that stuff, I genuflect to thee, because it's an amazing career field that you chose, right? I would not be able to be a Players Association representative just because of those things that are there, like those issues that are there. The drug stuff, screw it, man. You want to do roids, do roids. I think all my athletes should be as roided up as possible, right? You don't care about living your life after 40 years old anyway. Do all the roids, die at 50, make us remember who you are, and then we're happy with it, right? Damn, that was dark. Augustine saying you would get Osama free. Is it just because I look that way? I did the ancestry DNA thing, and turns out 0 Middle Eastern in this. 0. A lot of Mediterranean. And somehow German. Ich spreche Deutsch. So, maybe that's what it comes down to, right? But I look at the idea of relegation in the in the NFL. And the only way it works is if the NFL backs other teams. Like if the NFL does what the NBA has done with the WNBA and they just prop up a secondary and tertiary league. And that's kind of what they're doing with the UFL, right? Like they've teamed up with like The Rock and the people that own the UFL, and they're saying let's get this league going. And now we can have player swaps and all that other stuff that happen with it. We're creating our own minor league, maybe. But the UFL has to survive. It has to, and the secondary and tertiary leagues have to find a way to survive. Because fans are not going to watch that at first. We became fans of established brands, right? The Texans gained their fan base because Houston had a professional team that got taken away from them and became the Tennessee Titans. Whenever the Oilers move over to Tennessee, Tennessee now has a team that they can gravitate to and say, this is ours, right? The same thing with the Colts moving to Indianapolis and then Baltimore getting the Ravens. They get these teams because they had a fan base that was starved for those teams. whenever you introduce a new team into an existing market, like with the UFL, you have the Dallas Renegades. You're not going to get the fan base and the loyalty from the Dallas Cowboys, right? Even though it's been 30 years, you have a history with this team of we've seen them win championships. You think of Dallas Cowboys and you associate the names of Roger Staubach. You associate Troy Aikman, Tony Dorsett, all these players, right? Bullet Bob Hayes, Drew Pearson, all of these players. Because the growing pains for the NFL happened in the 1960s, where it wasn't in front of the entire world, where it didn't matter what the TV market was, and it didn't matter what the monetary gain for players was. Now, you have to worry about paying players six-figure contracts when they're not that caliber of player. But it's just because we need to be able to spend to, make a roster. So now you're paying 53 guys, 100,000 plus. Are you going to be able to have the product that you need, right? The Dallas Cowboys, and I'll go back and do this because I really want to get this topic going off the ground now, Augustine. You've created a monster here. But I'll go back and look at what payrolls were like whenever you had expansion teams back in the 60s, where there was a huge blow up of expansion teams in the NFL to create the monster that we have now. You can't just do that out of nowhere now without having patience. And whenever you look at these stadiums that the UFL plays in, and there's, more fans at a UTEP game, which is real hard to think about, than there is at these UFL games, you have to realize that there are going to be growing pains. The biggest difference is UTEP isn't paying the players. Yes, there's NIL. It's not coming from the school. The UFL and the secondary and tertiary leagues have to pay the players. So you have to find a way to survive and create that money. You have to find someone who's a crazy enough billionaire to say, I'm okay losing on average $5.3 million a year in roster revenue, not to mention what I had to pay a GM, the whole entire staff, and all those other things about it, right? Augustine saying expansion team salaries were low and subsidized by the other teams. Exactly. Like there was those issues, right? It's going to be so much harder now because the value of sports franchises just keeps increasing, right? My former boss at ESPN, John Skipper, creating the unrivaled 3-on-3 league with WNBA players, which I think is a great idea. They're not going to have city representation with these teams just yet. They're going to have, I want to say 40-ish, maybe a little more WNBA players in this, playing the 3-on-3 tournament in a 2,500-seat basketball arena that they built in Miami. It's basically a glorified all-star tournament for 3-on-3 basketball. But that's genius because now you have a lower overhead that you have to worry about paying with expansion franchises. Imagine how much successful the UFL would be in its first few years if you just had 8 teams playing in one location instead of having to worry about 8 different locations, getting the cameras and all that stuff set up, getting the GMs and all the other people that have to be in charge set up in these, where you can just have one crew that gets you off the ground and ready to go. And then when expansion comes, you can say these 8 teams are up for sale. We're going to bring in another 8 teams that are going to stay here. This is going to be their division. Those other teams are going to play each other. And then they have a champion that plays one another. Holy hell, I just created my own league. Now all I need is someone that's got a shit ton of money. Anybody? Anybody out there? You want to make this pipe dream come true? Because I think that's the only way that it's going to work. Augustine is saying, Paul Foster, more than enough. Hey, my guy, I'm with you. I am with you. But you know the way that millionaires become billionaires? They're stingy. That's how, right? Augustine saying, start talking to your ESPN friends about pushing promotion and relegation. Dear Mark Cuban. That's what I'm saying. You know what, Augustine? Maybe whenever we have lunch next week, we can talk about our own league that we want to create. We'll go on Shark Tank. Hell, I'll be the voice. You can be the analysis. We'll get this stuff done. Like we'll do a lot of heavy lifting here, my guy. And anybody else that wants to be a part of it, let us know. I'm good with that idea, though, Augustine. We're going to have the promotion and the relegation. I am down with it. It's been an absolute pleasure, everybody. I want to thank you so much for tuning into today's show. I've got some things that I've got to work on. I'm going to be going with the Sun Bowl Association today as Louisville and Washington have come into El Paso. They're going to be going on to Fort Bliss, which is going to be a fun time to see what's going on with the teams out there as they say hi to the community here in El Paso as we get ready for the 91st Sun Bowl game being played on December 31st here in the beautiful city of El Paso, Texas at our beautiful Sun Bowl game. I appreciate it all so much. We will see you next week on the Tipping Point with Mike Tipton. Remember, Monday, we're back live on Roku and the National Streaming Sports app. See you later, everybody.